Good evening and welcome to NTD News. Here's today's top stories. Whitehouse officials gather in the Oval Office for prayer on Good Friday. The president is asking Americans to pray for doctors and those sick with the virus. For the first time in the US, it looks like the pandemic is leveling off, but the White House Coronavirus Task Force says it's no time to loosen up. A small drop in New York daily deaths today, and with less hospitalizations and ICU patients, the governor says the state will move forward cautiously. The Chinese regime has been funding an army of internet trolls to push propaganda abroad. Leaked photos and documents show what China's professional trolls really look like. And across the world, religious services are being held in empty churches, congregations finding new ways to come together during the pandemic. On Good Friday, President Trump sending an Easter message from the Oval Office. He's calling on Americans to focus on prayer during this difficult time.
Well, thank you very much on this Good Friday.
President Trump sent out an Easter message to fellow Americans from the Oval Office, joined by Vice President Mike Pence.
Let there be a uniting of America.
And Maryland Bishop Harry Jackson. The president asks all Americans to pray that God will heal our nation.
To bring comfort to those who are grieving, to give strength to the doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, to restore health to the sick, and to renew the hope in every person who is suffering. Our nation will come through like never before.
On Good Friday, the commemoration of the crucifixion, Bishop Jackson blessed our country's leaders.
Once again, give this great man, our president, and give the vice president wisdom beyond their natural limitations. Give them insight so they can cover us, lead us, and bless us.
Top infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci and other health officials are pointing to lower rates of hospitalization from the virus as signs that social distancing is working. But such measures must continue even over the holiday.
Though we will not be able to gather together with one another as we normally would on Easter, we can use this sacred time to focus on prayer, reflection, and growing in our personal relationship with God, so important.
President Trump prayed for the angel of death to pass over, the disease to lessen, and for medical science to come forth.
And at a White House briefing today, the Coronavirus Task Force said social distancing is working. For the first time in the U.S., it looks like the epidemic curve is starting to level off. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more.
Good news on Friday, Dr. Birx from the Coronavirus Task Force said the epidemic curve is starting to take a turn for the better.
You can see for the first time that in the United States we're starting to level on the logarithmic phase like Italy did about a week ago.
She went on to say that this has much to do with New York's improvement. The state was hit the hardest by the virus, but now the average hospitalization rate is dropping dramatically. This means social distancing may be slowing the spread. But the task force said the peak isn't here yet.
So it's really about the encouraging signs that we see, but as encouraging as they are, we have not reached the peak. And so every day we need to continue to do what we did yesterday and the week before and the week before that. Because
the doctor also said that the U.S. death rate is much lower than many other nations. As of Friday, over 18,000 have died from the virus and over 491,000 have tested positive. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And an update on the U.S. epicenter. New York now reports nearly 8,000 deaths, while neighboring state New Jersey is at 2,000. But on one positive note, ICU admissions are down for the first time. NTD's Melina Weiskup has the latest.
The governor said the spread is slowing, but New Yorkers need to stay cautiously optimistic.
We've been watching a spread to the suburban communities around New York City, Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, Rockland.
Even as the state sees its first drop in ICU patients and a decline in the average number of hospitalizations, 777 people died on Thursday. And that's only a small drop from Wednesday, which recorded 799. On a lighter note, the curve is flattening.
The actual curve is much, much lower than any of them projected.
Hospital capacity is also up 50% as facilities across the state continue to coordinate and share equipment. And to help ease healthcare workers' minds about bringing the virus home, some hotels and Airbnbs are opening their doors to them. To help common citizens, the state is providing $200 million to help low-income households pay for food. As hopes rise for getting back to normal, Cuomo says more testing is key. He emphasized the need to be prepared for a possible second wave, pointing out the lack of previous guidance from the international community.
Where were the warning signs? Who was supposed to blow the whistle? The president has asked this question, and I think he's right.
He said that there were signs well ahead of time that this would come, but added that information sources didn't make a sincere enough effort to warn against the virus's severity. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News, New York.
And to minimize a potential second wave, Governor Cuomo says New York needs to proceed with caution and keep up social distancing. And now staying in New York, a day in the life of one of its first responders, one of many heroes fighting to save a city under siege.
I just finished up my shift, long day, 12-hour shift, and still managed to respond to 12 assignments in those 12 hours. Normal days about 6 or 7, which is busier up here than in most places.
Travis Kessel, working as a paramedic on the front lines of New York City's virus outbreak, says his work has skyrocketed.
We've dealt with large-scale events before, but we haven't dealt with a sustained, serious call volume, now going on its 3rd week with no end in sight.
These days, he says the calls are all too often for cardiac arrests, many of them associated with the virus. On Tuesday, he took 4 of those calls. 2 patients were pronounced dead on the scene. As difficult as the job can be, Kessel says he and his colleagues feel motivated to put their heads down and do the work.
I hate the phrase, we know what we signed up for, because as much as we may have known, we didn't know this. We haven't seen this. No one has seen this. But we know why we signed up for this, and it's to help.
And the price of goods is falling in the US as CCP virus cuts demand. The decreases counter price increases that came with shortages in the supply chain. Economists predict this trend could last a while as businesses slash prices to meet the lower demand. The Labor Department said today its consumer price index dropped 0.4% last month amid a tumble in the cost of gasoline, as well as record price decreases in other goods. And the White House calling out Voice of America for repeating Chinese communist propaganda. It says it's not the first time the outlet has acted as a microphone for authoritarian regimes.
The White House is calling out media outlet Voice of America. A statement today reading, Voice of America spends your money to speak for authoritarian regimes. The outlet, known as VOA, is a global news network funded by American taxpayers. Its written mission is to tell America's story and present the policies of the United States clearly and effectively. But the White House says VOA too often speaks for America's adversaries, not its citizens. The statement criticizes the media outlet for republishing virus numbers from the Chinese Communist Party, saying, as intelligence experts point out, there is simply no way to verify the accuracy of China's numbers. VOA also called Wuhan's lockdown a successful model. To back it up, it tweeted out the regime's propaganda video of the city's light show, held to mark its reopening. Evidence shows the virus was covered up in Wuhan for weeks or months. When it got too big to control, the regime then started sealing people into their homes and forcibly arresting those it suspected had the virus. The White House statement ends with, today VOA is promoting propaganda and your tax dollars are paying for it.
And almost 1,000 people reported dead in France, while the country sees the second straight day of a drop in patients in intensive care. This and more from around the world.
The number of people who have died from the CCP virus in France jumped by nearly 1,000 on Friday, which means the country's dead now number just over 13,000. But the number of people in intensive care units fell slightly for the second day in a row. Nationwide confinement is starting to take effect.
The number, I remind you, of the total number of patients in that we are caring for each day is for the second consecutive day slightly, very slightly in the negative, with 62 less patients. So, it's a very small reduction in the need for space in intensive care, a little ray of sunshine, but this timid light, as you know, is very important for all health workers.
In the UK, the death toll from the CCP virus has risen by 980, bringing their total dead to nearly 9,000. The country announced on Friday its biggest daily rise to date. The British Health Minister warned citizens about the upcoming Easter holiday and the tempting weather that's expected.
This Easter will be another test of the nation's resolve. It's a time of year when people normally come together, but however warm the weather, however tempting your local beach or park, we need everyone to stay at home.
As many as 150 members of the Saudi Arabian royal family are believed to have been infected with the CCP virus. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and his ministers are in quarantine. King Salman is in isolation, and the king's nephew, the 70-year-old governor of the country's capital, is in intensive care.
And observing lockdowns, priests around the world are forced to hold masses to empty churches.
At a church in a small village in Spain, a priest is placing pictures of his usual attendees on church benches. He said that way he won't feel so alone while holding the ceremony, which will be broadcast on TV. A local priest in Italy found a similar solution. He asked children to draw pictures, which he has now pinned to the pews. He will live stream his ceremonies from now on. The same goes for Catholics in Argentina, where 3 parish priests stood in front of empty pews to hold an online mass. A dean in Germany took a different approach. 300 cars gathered in a parking lot for a drive-in mass amid the global pandemic. And in Israel, just a handful of Franciscan friars walked through Jerusalem on Good Friday. Only 4 people made up a procession that's usually packed with crowds of pilgrims and tourists.
And coming up, pictures and documents leaked from within the Chinese Communist Party shed light on its professional trolls or internet army. Find out more about their purpose after the break.
They were working on developing a coronavirus for the human host. Leads you to question, why would you be creating a coronavirus that can infect humans?
That means virus now can infect human cell much easier.
I noticed that after the outbreak, the Wuhan Institute of Virology kept strangely quiet. Who is the real boss of the P4 laboratory?
I believe they're developing them. I think they want to be the most advanced nation on Earth when it comes to biological weapons.
We want the truth.
It's time for the United States to defend itself. The real disease here is communism.
What was the Chinese Communist Party trying to hide?
Welcome back. The virus epidemic shut down production in China. Now, major countries are bringing their manufacturing home. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
China, long known as the factory of the world, might not hold that title for much longer. Countries around the world, including major producers like the U.S. and Japan, are planning to bring manufacturing home. Top White House advisor Larry Kudlow floating the possibility of paying all moving expenses for American manufacturers who want to come back home. And they could be interested. The corporate tax rate was reduced in 2017 and regulations have also been cut. Japan has also just allocated over $2 billion for companies who want to move their production away from China. Now to Wuhan, the epicenter of the CCP virus. On April 8th, Wuhan lifted its lockdown. Apart from fearing a second outbreak, residents face other problems. No job, no income, businesses going bankrupt, no aid from the authorities, sadness for loved ones who have died, and continued censorship. There are still restrictions on people coming and going from residential blocks. If residents do not have a green health code, they are not allowed to leave. Many shops have gone bankrupt as there aren't enough customers, and most of the shops and restaurants are still closed.
People are still living in the shadow of the epidemic and dare not come out. Many people died. The only thing we can do is try to keep healthy and not die, and have enough to eat. It's not easy for us to survive now. We have almost no income. The prices are all so high. The price of vegetables is at least 5 times higher than before.
For Mr. Ding, high prices are not the only problem. He's been summoned by the police several times because he posted online about someone from his family who died from the virus. On April 9th, several hundred Wuhan business owners went out to protest. They complained there's no aid policy and no customers, so their businesses can't survive. If their rent is not cut for 1 year, they'll have to cancel their leases. Some were beaten and arrested by police. Reports that a popular Nintendo game was removed in China. The game Animal Crossing isn't even officially available in China. While no official reason was given, many are blaming Hong Kong pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong. He posted a screenshot of a flood of angry messages from Chinese blaming him for the game's removal. In the game, players can decorate their own islands and invite other players to visit. In the social simulator game, it became an instant hit after launching last month, many using it to interact and simulate real-life scenarios while stuck in lockdown. With Hong Kong under lockdown, Wong took his protest viral. He posted on Twitter. In his game, Wong showed a picture of his island decorated with a banner saying, "Free Hong Kong, Revolution Now." Many followed suit, customizing islands that take aim at Chinese party officials, including Xi Jinping and the WHO. Wang posted on Twitter, "This is what we do in Animal Crossing. Maybe it's why these people are so anxious to go back to the game."
And Taiwan's intelligence agency says they have detected trolls from mainland China, trying to stir up the spat between the Taiwan and the WHO. Leaked documents obtained by NTD show what China's internet army looks like and how they operate.
Please don't politicize this virus.
The WHO Director General is not happy with Taiwan. He recently accused the self-ruling island of attacking him in a racist campaign.
3 months ago, this attack came from Taiwan.
He did not give any evidence to back up his claims. The Taiwanese government says the accusation is groundless. But soon after, a flood of posts started to emerge on the internet. Many claim they themselves are Taiwanese. They paint Taiwan as the attacker and apologized to Tedros. One saying, "As a Taiwanese, I feel extremely ashamed that Taiwan attacked Tedros so viciously. I beg for his forgiveness." But there's one problem. According to Taiwan's investigation bureau, this account comes from mainland China.
We tracked down this account, and the result is this account comes from mainland China.
Chang said in a briefing Friday that many of these posts use the exact same wording. He said in just the past few days, at least 40 accounts have published hundreds of posts.
They offer templates and call on netizens to spread them. This account said, "Everyone, please try to make it real. This is quite interesting."
Beijing has a history of spreading disinformation via its so-called 50-cent army. The groups of internet users got their name for getting paid 50 cents per post by the Chinese regime. They often troll through websites and social media inside and outside of China and help push the Chinese regime's narrative. For China, this political task is no less serious than any other of the regime's operation. These photos, obtained by NTD, show at a northern town in China officials training commanders who regulate the 50-cent army. The Chinese regime ramped up its propaganda machine since the CCP virus outbreak. According to internal training materials accompanying the photos, the propaganda task force not only involves the police force, but also the justice system, both under the direction of the Communist Party's Political and Legal Affairs Commission. The Internet Army commander is no easy job. Principles the army need to follow include make sure the narrative is unified and the same, make sure the comments are political, authoritative, timely, come out as a group with human elements and in accordance with societal trends. And whether or not the commanders is able to complete their monthly portion of task is directly related to their monthly rewards and punishments. The scale of China's internet army is formidable. State media reported in 2013 that there were at least more than 2 million internet monitors at the time. That equals the active personnel in China's People Liberation Army, the largest military in the world. And a Twitter influencer in China Affairs recently tweeted a leaked document showing the regime is recruiting over 10 million more internet monitors. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Still to come. One woman in California saw the country needed masks and decided to take action. Now her goal is to make 100 million of them. We spoke with her to find out how it's going. Find out after the break.
"90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board."
Welcome back. All around the world, people are looking for masks. To help, some crafters decided to put their talent to good use. NTD's Melina Weisskopf talks to one mask maker in California who started a national mask making marathon. Their goal is to make 100 million of them.
As the pandemic sweeps the globe, frontline workers are looking out for us. But who's looking out for them?
Making sure everyone's got a mask. I hope they like it.
Hillary Cohen noticed that workers at her local grocery store didn't have masks, so she started making them by hand.
And I just want to think about those people, like the people in the cracks that are very much on the front line, but maybe not necessarily deemed that employee.
She started a mask-making marathon and got people to join from all around the world. They sewed over 1,000 masks during the first marathon, and they're not stopping now. The goal is 100 million masks.
And working on that goal of the 100 million masks, which is really the point, is to get all of the masks taken care of so we don't have a shortage. So if we're all sewing as fast as we can for 12 hours, that's going to generate a lot of masks just by nature.
A lot of masks means a lot of supplies. One man started donating fabric. Then the mask makers ran low on elastic, so they got creative.
Nobody can find elastic. There was like one girl posted that she went to the dollar store and cut up headbands in half. And like since then, that's all that I use is dollar store headbands.
Cohen says the most inspiring part about making them is the peace of mind and positivity spreading.
So I hope in doing that to kind of, in my part, further that message of take care of each other, take care of your neighbor.
Their next 12-hour marathon is Saturday, 7 to 7 Pacific time. Anyone can join at calltocrafting.com. Cohen says there will be musicians, magicians, and other talent to keep everyone entertained while making sure they get more masks out there. Melina Weisskopf, NTD News, New York.
And in Paris, the Louvre Apollo Gallery only reopened in mid-January following refurbishment, but now its treasures are waiting to be seen again. Our France correspondent David Vivez takes us there to see the collection.
This gallery was used as a model for the famous Hall of Mirrors in Versailles Castle. This was a reception gallery designed for King Louis XIV, also known as the Sun King.
Today, it hosts one of the most notable collections of jewelry. The crown jewels of France are a treasure that was passed on from king to king since the 16th century. Each king enriched the collection, like those crystal vases added under Louis XIV. It also shows the exceptional skills of traditional craftsmanship, as shown by the Regent, bought in 1717.
This was the most famous, biggest and pure diamond that ever was at that time. We shouldn't call them jewels. These are precious stones mounted by craftsmen on jewelry for a particular ceremony.
French kings were considered to be sent by gods. Diamonds were mounted on their crowns as symbols of purity and perfection. The jewel from this treasure accompanied the king during a sacrament ceremony, as in here, Napoleon consecrating Empress Josephine in Notre Dame Cathedral. But the crown jewels, like the French monarchy, had a tragic fate. Just after the French Revolution and the beheading of King Louis XVI, revolutionaries sneaked into the palace and stole some of the jewels, which were later sold off. But this isn't the end.
We do our best to get back any jewelry that was part of this collection, like this one the Louvre bought in 2008. It's an exceptional, spectacular diamond bow brooch.
This way, the Louvre is bringing France's history back, one treasure at a time.
And still to come, athletes going the extra mile to stay in shape under lockdown. See some of their creative workouts after the break. Welcome back. Some athletes have taken extreme measures to stay fit while under lockdown. Their workout ideas are about as creative as they are difficult.
For professional athletes, it's only natural that even when confined to one's home, keeping fit is still possible. From fun exercises to seemingly impossible obstacle courses, these activities are creative to say the least. Slovakian wake skater Zuzana Vrablova had her dog play the role of personal trainer as she performed some push-ups and sit-ups. Other high-level athletes went to greater lengths. Spanish MotoGP rider Carlos Tate has been working on his balance with a unicycle obstacle course, while Canadian snowboarder Sébastien Toutant showed off his balancing skills with some daring furniture leaps in his living room. Meanwhile, Swedish freestyle skier Jesper Chater was relegated to skiing on his balcony, where he's been working on his rail skills.
That's the latest updates for now. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.